She accidentally married the CEO who turned out to be a vampire prince. Part 2. Chapter 7, The Ex-Fiancé from the Crypt. Luna was still reeling from her encounter with Nikolai Blackthorne. Not just because the mysterious younger brother had appeared out of nowhere like a puff of smoke and flirted like a Bond villain, but because of the way Darian had reacted when she mentioned him. Tension, fear, and something more primal. Territorial rage. She could still feel the intensity of his grip on her arms, the warning in his voice, the way his fangs had almost slipped out when he'd said especially you. And now, after surviving one gala, one vampire brother, and several glasses of not wine, Luna found herself standing in front of yet another mansion, this one older, colder, and very much less glamorous than Darian's. The invitation had come the night before. A black envelope slipped under her door, sealed with crimson wax. Lady Evangeline von Dammerung cordially invites Mrs. Luna Blackthorne to afternoon tea. Attendance is not optional. Darian had tried to intercept it. Had tried to burn it, in fact. But Luna had plucked it from the fireplace with tongs and said, "She wants to meet me. I'm going." Darian's jaw had locked. "You're walking into a trap." "I'm already married to one," she'd said sweetly. The estate was nestled in the Santa Monica Mountains, hidden by dense trees and surrounded by a wrought iron gate with twisting vines and skull-shaped finials. The mansion itself looked like it had been dragged out of a Victorian horror novel, spires, turrets, and stained glass windows that leaked no light. A vampire butler, yes, a butler, answered the door and led Luna down a velvet-lined corridor into a drawing room filled with taxidermy ravens, antique mirrors, and a fireplace that burned with blue fire. Lady Evangeline waited near the hearth. She was the very definition of Gothic elegance. Long raven black hair fell in glossy waves over her shoulders. Her eyes were violet, actually violet. Her dress was floor-length velvet in a deep, bruised shade of purple, and her lips were the color of crushed pomegranates. She didn't rise when Luna entered. She merely smiled. "Do sit," she said, voice like silk cut with glass. "I had your blood type chilled in case you prefer tradition." "I'll pass," Luna said, sitting across from her. "But thanks." Evangeline studied her with a look halfway between amusement and disdain. "So, this is the mortal who wears the ring?" Luna held her chin up. "I suppose I am." "You're smaller than I imagined," Evangeline said, lifting a teacup with pale, elegant fingers. "And less polished. But there's a certain defiance in your eyes. That's new." His last human bride was, how shall I put this, pliable. Luna didn't flinch. "I'm not the pliable type." "No," Evangeline said, sipping from the cup. "You're the doomed type." Luna blinked. "Excuse me." Evangeline set her cup down and stood, gliding across the room like smoke. She circled Luna slowly. "Do you know how long I stood by Darian's side? How many centuries I waited while his bloodline tore itself apart? I was to be his queen. His equal. The one who would rule beside him when the councils collapsed and the old ways rose again. And then I came along and ruined your immortal fantasy." Luna offered. Evangeline stopped behind her. "You didn't ruin it. You replaced it. Temporarily. Is that what this is?" Luna said, turning to face her. "A power grab dressed as a tea party." The vampire smiled sweetly. "No, darling. This is a warning." Before Luna could react, Evangeline's hand lashed out and grabbed her wrist, cold fingers like iron shackles. You don't know what he's capable of, she hissed. You don't know the darkness that sleeps in that blood. I've seen him burn villages, Luna. I've watched him drink the hearts of kings. He was a myth before your ancestors were born. Luna yanked her hand free. Then why do you still want him? Because monsters love monsters, Evangeline whispered. And you? Luna asked. What do you love? Power. That single word echoed like a blade being drawn. Evangeline moved to the fireplace and pulled something from the mantel, a dagger. Thin, silver, carved with ancient symbols Luna couldn't read. She held it out between them, like a ceremonial object. I invoke the right of blood duel, she said coolly. Luna stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You want to duel me? With that? Not tonight, Evangeline said, her smile sharp. But soon. In front of the court. In the old ways. You are bonded to a prince. And that makes you fair game. Luna stood, blood pounding. Is this supposed to scare me? I don't even know what a blood duel is. Evangeline stepped closer, their noses almost touching. It's a dance, darling. One that ends with only one woman standing. And the other, buried beneath roses. You don't get to decide who he chooses, Luna whispered. Evangeline tilted her head. Oh, sweet girl. He already chose. Long before you were born. What's happening now? It's just a diversion. Then she stepped back, curtsied low, and said. Tell your husband I'll see him at the reckoning. And bring your pretty little mortal heart, Luna. I'd like to hear how fast it beats when I'm holding it. When Luna returned to the penthouse, her hands were still trembling. Darian was waiting in the great room, leaning against the piano like a storm barely contained. You went, he said. I went, she replied, tossing her coat over a chair. He crossed the room in 3 strides. Did she touch you? She challenged me, Luna snapped. To a blood duel. Darian swore in a language she didn't recognize. I'll stop it, he said. I'll invoke the pact. No, Luna said firmly. Don't. I want this. His eyes narrowed. You want to fight her? I want to prove I'm not some fragile little mortal everyone thinks they can chew up and spit out. He looked at her with something close to awe. You're not what I expected. I get that a lot, she said. Now, what do I need to do to survive a vampire duel? He hesitated. Then he said, you start by letting me bite you. Chapter 8, Fangs, Fights and Fundraisers. The ballroom of the Blackthorn Tower glittered beneath glass chandeliers shaped like icicles. A full orchestra played something elegant and sharp while servers floated through the crowd with trays of champagne, jewel-toned canapes, and the occasional unlabeled goblet full of something thicker than wine. This wasn't just another gala, it was the Blackthorn Winter Benefaction, a headline event held once a decade to raise funds for the preservation of cultural legacies which Luna had quickly learned was code for supernatural power laundering. It was equal parts fundraiser and vampiric performance art. And Luna. She was at the center of it. Clad in a custom black silk gown with thorn-like beading along the bodice, a matching onyx choker at her throat, and her wedding ring glinting like a brand, she looked like what she was now, the wife of Darian Blackthorn. She walked arm in arm with him through a sea of whispered greetings, masked stares, and courtly nods. Every time someone addressed her as Lady Blackthorn, she had to fight the urge to snort. Every time someone offered their wrist to Darian in subtle invitation, she had to fight the urge to hiss. Darian, for all his charm, was tense beneath the polished exterior. His hand at the small of her back was too firm. His smiles were too rehearsed. She noticed how often his gaze flicked toward the shadows above the ballroom, as if scanning for something unseen. They weren't alone tonight. Not truly. Luna had asked him earlier, while Marta fastened her dress, "Why so much security? Aren't we surrounded by vampires?" Darian had replied, "Yes. That's the problem." It happened when the orchestra reached the crescendo of a sweeping waltz. Luna was mid-laugh at Darian's perfectly timed quip about undead investment portfolios when the lights flickered, once, twice, then died. Gasps. Whispers. The rustle of silk and nerves. A second later, the emergency lights flared on, but not gold and warm. They were UV-coated, stark white, and cold. So cold. Half the room screamed. The other half began hissing. Darian was already moving. He grabbed Luna and shoved her behind a marble pillar, shielding her with his body as glass shattered overhead. Figures in tactical gear dropped through the skylight, black boots landing in precise formation. Hunters. Vampire hunters. They wore black leather and Kevlar, eyes hidden behind mirrored goggles, silver insignias stitched into their shoulders. And they were armed, with crossbows, UV flash grenades, and one particularly nasty-looking cannon that was currently spinning up to charge. "No, no, no," Luna whispered. This was supposed to be a fundraiser. With shrimp skewers and string quartets. "Welcome to my world," Darian said grimly. A voice rang out through a portable megaphone. "Darian Blackthorn, Prince of the Ninth House. By authority of the Human Preservation Accords and the Sanctum Initiative, you are under mortal sanction." Luna blinked. "That sounds bad." "It means they want to kill me," Darian replied. "Permanently." "Ah. Just clarifying." The hunters opened fire. Silver-tipped bolts flew through the air. Several vampires went down immediately, screaming as their bodies smoked. The rest scattered in a burst of supernatural speed. Darian snarled, grabbed Luna by the waist, and vaulted over a buffet table just as a bolt embedded itself where her head had been. He shoved her behind an overturned bar cart. "Stay down. Don't move," he growled. Then his eyes flashed red, fangs dropped, and he vanished into the fray. Luna peeked up over the edge. The ballroom was chaos. Vampires and hunters clashed like rival dance troupes on crack, graceful, lethal, terrifying. A chandelier crashed to the floor. Screams rang out. A vampire woman set a hunter on fire with a single touch. Another was staked midair and exploded into ash, dress and all. And through it all, Darian was a storm. He moved like liquid shadow, fangs bared, clawing through steel and flesh. He tore a crossbow in half with his bare hands. He roared once, an unearthly, thunderous sound, and two hunters simply fled. Luna's breath caught. He wasn't just strong. He was terrifying. And yet, when his eyes met hers across the chaos, briefly, burning red, he looked only one thing, afraid for her. She should have stayed hidden. That's what she told herself later. But when she saw a hunter sneak around the side of the ballroom, a bolt locked and aimed square at Darian's back, she moved. Without thinking, she lunged. Grabbed a silver tray. And hurled it like a frisbee of fury. It hit the hunter square in the face. He stumbled, cursed, and missed the shot, sending the bolt into the ceiling instead. Darian turned just in time to see Luna scoop up the fallen crossbow, fumble with it like an oversized stapler, and somehow, by miracle or rage, fire it into the hunter's leg. The man screamed. Darian swooped in and knocked him out cold. "You complete lunatic," he breathed. "You're welcome," she yelled. 20 minutes later, the hunters were either incapacitated, fled, or detained by the vampire god. The ballroom looked like a post-apocalyptic prom. Luna stood barefoot, her heels long abandoned, her dress singed at the hem, while Darian paced furiously in front of her, shirt torn, eyes still glowing faintly. "You could have been killed," he snapped. "You could have been staked," she snapped back. "Do you have any idea what that would have done to our insurance premiums?" "Luna. You're welcome for the tray toss, by the way. That was excellent aim." He stopped pacing. Stared at her. Then he burst out laughing. Not a cold chuckle. Not a smug smirk. But real, startled, belly-deep laughter. Luna blinked. "Did you just laugh?" "You're completely mad," he said, shaking his head. "A walking disaster." "You married me," she pointed out. "Accidentally. Still counts." He stepped closer. "You saved me. You owe me shrimp skewers." His smile faded slowly as his hand reached up and brushed a lock of hair from her face. "I owe you everything." The vampire elite buzzed with whispers. Chapter 9, Daylight Kisses. The morning sun streamed into the penthouse for the first time in weeks. It slanted across marble floors, dusted velvet chairs in gold, and touched the edge of the grand piano with a soft, forgiving glow. And this time, Darian didn't flinch. He stood at the window, shirtless, the hem of his black lounge pants brushing the floor, his bare chest illuminated by sunlight that should have scorched his skin to ash. But it didn't. Instead, the light kissed his skin. Softly. Carefully. Like it was testing him. Luna, wrapped in a blanket on the edge of the sofa, stared at him like he'd just rewritten the laws of nature. "You're not burning," she said quietly. Darian turned, and for the first time in her short, surreal marriage, he looked afraid. "I know," he whispered. He backed into the shadows just in case, slowly, like an animal not trusting the meat, but the damage, or miracle, was done. Sunlight. Real, golden sunlight. And it hadn't hurt him. Not like it used to. Not like it had for the past 200 years. Marta, who had entered the room mid-moment with a tray of blood tea and toast, dropped both. The porcelain shattered across the floor. She stared. "My prince, you were in the light." "I was," he murmured. "But that hasn't happened since," she cut off, blinking hard. "This shouldn't be possible." And then, ever so slightly, she looked at Luna. The next few hours were a blur of books, old scrolls, tests, and complete emotional denial. Darian stood just inside the beam of sunlight, first for 5 seconds. Then 10. Then 30. No burns. No blisters. No smoke. Luna, half curled in an armchair with a plate of croissants she wasn't touching, finally asked, "So what's happening? Are you becoming human?" "No," Darian said. "But something is changing. The bond, our bond, it's evolving." "Into what?" "Vampire Husband 2.0. He gave her a warning look. She shrugged. "Look, it's either this or I start panic baking garlic bread." He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, eyes heavy and serious. "There are old texts," he said. "Rituals that suggest sunlight immunity is possible for our kind, but only through a life-bound connection. Translation. Love, he said flatly. Luna choked on her croissant. Excuse me. True love, he repeated, grimacing. It's stupidly poetic. The theory is that if a vampire forms a soul-deep bond with someone pure of heart, someone whose blood resonates with ancestral frequencies, light might no longer reject them. You mean, like an allergic reaction cured by a soulmate? He rolled his eyes. It's more complicated than that. Not by much, she said, brow raised. So you think I'm your vampire allergy shot? He didn't smile. Instead, he looked at her the way one looks at a prophecy come to life. A riddle half solved. A candle in a locked room. And Luna felt her heart thump uncomfortably hard. That afternoon, Darian insisted they go to the rooftop. Luna was suspicious. You just survived a surprise hunter attack and now you want to tan. I want to test the limits, he said. So they went. He stood at the edge of the rooftop terrace, sun high in the sky, a cold wind whipping through his hair. Luna stood 5 feet away, wringing her hands. Okay, but if you start sizzling, I'm rolling you in this throw blanket and dragging you inside. Darian stepped forward into the full light. And nothing happened. No pain. No smoke. Just warmth. He turned, face stunned. I can feel it. What? The sun. The heat. I haven't felt this since, before. He held out his hand to her, beckoning. Come. Luna hesitated. Then walked into the sun. When she placed her hand in his, something clicked. Visibly. Like a shimmer in the air around them. The light grew softer. The wind calmed. The rooftop seemed to hush. And then, he kissed her. It wasn't like before. It wasn't heat and impulse, or danger and deception. This kiss was slow. Like time itself was bowing to them. His lips were cool at first, but warmed against hers. She curled into him without thinking, without fear. The sun kissed their skin as they kissed each other. Darian broke away first, eyes wide, breath ragged. You're changing me. You make it sound like a problem, Luna whispered. No, he said. It's just. I didn't think it was possible. That someone like me could still be touched by light. She cupped his jaw, thumb brushing his cheek. Maybe you were just waiting for someone stubborn enough to drag you into it. His smile was small. Real. You are the most reckless thing I've ever loved. Luna blinked. Loved. He froze. Too late. She pulled back an inch. You said. It slipped. But you meant it. Silence. Then Darian whispered, yes. Luna didn't say it back. Not yet. But she didn't move away. And that, for now, was enough. Deep in a crypt beneath an old cathedral in Budapest, a figure in shadow watched the sun rise on a monitor screen. It showed Darian and Luna on the rooftop, holding each other in sunlight. A low voice growled from the dark. The prophecy is unfolding. We must act before he becomes invincible. Another voice, sharp, male, amused, added. Let him have his little sun-kissed honeymoon. I'll burn it down when the time is right. Nikolai. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. The mortal wife of Darian Blackthorne had risked her life for him. She had blood on her dress, ash in her hair, and steel in her spine. And for the first time in centuries, the court of the undead began to murmur that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't just a mistake. She was a queen in the making. Chapter 10, Mysterious Markings. Luna woke in the middle of the night with her skin burning. Not like sunburn. Not like fever. Worse. It felt like something ancient and invisible was being drawn onto her back with fire-tipped ink. She cried out, tearing off the silk sheets as she scrambled toward the bathroom, disoriented and drenched in sweat. The penthouse was silent except for her ragged breathing. She flicked on the light, stumbling toward the mirror. Her face was pale. Her eyes wild. She turned. And that's when she saw it. Scrawled across her shoulder blades in fine, glowing gold lines was a pattern of sigils, not tattoos, not bruises. They hovered just beneath her skin, as though etched in light and blood. Curves. Spirals. Sharp runes like ancient teeth. And in the center of her spine, a symbol she recognized without knowing how. A thorned crown cradled by two crescent moons. It pulsed. Luna backed away, horror clamping her chest. What the hell? The door burst open. Darian stood there in black silk pants and nothing else, eyes already glowing red, breath heavy with panic. I felt it, he said. Your pain. What happened? I don't know, she gasped. It just appeared. She turned, and when he saw her back, his face changed. Not with shock. With recognition. No, he whispered. It's too soon. You know what this is. Darian stepped closer, slowly, as if afraid touching her would make it worse. It's a bloodline mark. But not mine. Not any of the 9 houses. Then whose? She asked. He met her eyes. The 10th. Luna sat on the edge of the bed while Darian paced. The 10th house, he said, voice tight, was erased from the records centuries ago. It was a rogue line. Violent. Powerful. Too powerful. They didn't follow our laws. They didn't follow anyone's. They were vampires. No. They were something worse. A hybrid line, half vampire, half hunter. Luna's blood chilled. Like vampire slayers. They were born to kill, Darian said. But they had vampire blood. That's what made them deadly. Immune to most weaknesses, strong enough to slaughter our kind, and yours. She stared down at her shaking hands. And you're saying I'm descended from that? From some forgotten hybrid hunter clan? I didn't know until now, he said. But the mark doesn't lie. You carry their blood. She felt sick. That would explain things. Like what? I've always had this weird sense, she whispered. Like I could read people the second they walked in a room. I knew if they were liars, angry, dangerous. It's why I hated crowds. And sometimes I'd have these dreams, people screaming, fire, symbols I didn't understand. He sank into the chair across from her, hands steepled beneath his chin. It also explains how the bond awakened so fast. Your bloodline is sacred. Cursed, yes, but tied to magic older than mine. She looked up. So what does this mean for us? It means you were fated to meet me. Not just randomly. Not just drunkenly. He exhaled. It means our bond was manipulated by something, watching. Watching, she echoed. The 10th house had their own prophecies. Some say they didn't die out. They vanished. Waiting for the right heir to re-emerge. Someone who could control both hunger and light. Luna wrapped her arms around herself. And now that I've marked, others will come, won't they? They'll feel it, he said. You're awakening. Some will want to use you. Some will want to destroy you. Her voice shook. And you? Darian reached forward, gripping her hand. I'll protect you. No matter what it costs. She didn't pull away. But the warmth of his touch was tinged now with fear. Not fear of him. Fear for her. Later that night, Luna lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the mark still pulsing faintly beneath her skin. She closed her eyes. And a memory that wasn't hers bloomed behind her lids. Fire. Screams. Blood on cobblestones. A woman in black armor, her face so like Luna's it made her breath hitch. A blade in her hand, wet and red. A circle of men with silver fangs snarling, circling. The woman shouted a word that echoed like thunder. Exarvite. And every vampire dropped dead. Luna shot upright in bed, heart galloping. She knew that word now. It was etched into her spine, the kill command. Far from the penthouse, beneath the ruins of an old monastery, Evangeline stood in front of a basin of dark water. Beside her, Nikolai lounged on a broken throne, sipping from a goblet of crimson. She's waking, Evangeline said. The hunter inside her. I saw the mark. The prophecy is shifting. Nikolai's smile sharpened. Then it's time to break the bond. Before she becomes something we can't control. Evangeline didn't smile. She won't break it, she said. Not willingly. Then we'll make her, Nikolai said, draining his glass. Start with her mother. Pain is an excellent motivator. Chapter 11, The Other Prince. It began with roses. 12 long-stemmed black ones, dipped in silver, bound with a red velvet ribbon. They were waiting on Luna's breakfast tray. No card. No explanation. Just a single phrase stitched into the silk napkin beside them in looping crimson thread. For the wife of the wrong prince. Darian was gone by the time she awoke. A rare board meeting that required his daylight double to impersonate him in human business, one of the many weird adjustments of being married to a vampire CEO. He'd left her a note, brief and urgent. Do not leave the penthouse today. I felt something shift. Be cautious. Stay in the light. D. But Luna was already on edge. She had barely slept. The markings on her back still pulsed faintly beneath her skin, occasionally flashing gold in her reflection when she passed mirrors. Her dreams had been vivid and violent, flashes of fire, symbols, a silver blade dagger soaked in blood that felt like her own. She thought of Evangeline's threats. Of the prophecy Darian refused to fully explain. And now, black roses. Something was coming. Something with fangs and a name. She first saw him in the mirror. Luna was brushing her hair, trying to look less like someone whose fate was tangled in vampire politics and more like a person who once had a normal job, when she noticed the reflection, tall, sharp, grinning, just behind her. She spun around. He was leaning casually against her bedroom doorframe, dressed in a wine-colored silk shirt with 3 buttons undone and a smirk carved from sin. Missed me, he purred. Nikolai, she said, voice tight. How the hell did you get in here? Please, he said, strolling toward her. Do you think Darian actually wards his home against me? His own brother. He's either arrogant, or stupid. Luna backed up slowly until her calves hit the bed. He said you were dangerous. He's right, Nikolai said brightly. But not in the way you think. He stopped inches away from her, eyes raking over her face, not with hunger exactly, but something worse. Fascination. I see it, he murmured. The mark. The bloodline is waking. You're glowing, Luna. Step back, she warned. He did, but only slightly. Relax. I'm not here to harm you. If I wanted you dead, I'd have done it before breakfast. I'm here to talk. To offer perspective. She crossed her arms. About what? About Darian. About the lies he's fed you. The prophecy you're so blindly walking into. And about your choices. Because despite what he's told you, you do have them. I'm listening, she said warily. Nikolai sauntered over to the window, gazing out at the hazy Los Angeles skyline like a bored prince surveying a kingdom he was too good for. My brother was always the obedient one. The crown prince. The heir. Bound to rules, to rituals, to prophecy. He thinks he loves you, Luna, but what he really sees is salvation. A cure. A loophole. Luna's mouth went dry. That's not true. He wants to become human, doesn't he? To walk in the sun, to love you without burning. But what happens when he gets what he wants? Nikolai turned to her. He won't need you anymore. You'll just be human again. Normal. Forgotten. Luna faltered. You're twisting this. Am I? He asked softly. Or am I the only one telling you the truth? He stepped closer again, this time slowly, deliberately. I don't want to change you, Luna. I want to free you. From this bond. From the mark. From all of it. You weren't made to be someone's princess. You were made to be a weapon. A queen. And with me. He reached into his coat and withdrew something wrapped in velvet. A dagger. Ancient. Beautiful. Silver and bone. The blade of Viel, he said. It's keyed to your bloodline. Only a true daughter of the 10th house can hold it. Go on. She stared at it. Her hand trembled as she reached out. And when she touched the hilt, the blade glowed softly in her grip. Nikolai smiled. There she is. Before Luna could process what she'd just done, the front doors of the penthouse slammed open with a sound like thunder. Darian burst in, coat flaring behind him, eyes already burning crimson. Nikolai. The younger prince turned, clearly amused. Hello, brother. Still obsessed with punctuality, I see. Step away from her. She invited me in, Nikolai said coolly. Didn't you, Luna? I didn't know I needed to not invite you, she snapped. Darian crossed the room in a blur, standing between them now. His power was different than Nikolai's. Less seductive. More storm. You don't belong here, he growled. Leave before I forget your family. Nikolai rolled his eyes. You can't protect her forever. She has the mark. The blood. She'll turn. And when she does, I'll be waiting. And just like that, he vanished, gone in a swirl of shadow and silk. Darian turned to Luna, his face a mixture of fury, fear, and something far more painful. You touched the blade. I didn't know what it was, she yelled. I thought he was lying. I thought. You felt it, didn't you? He asked quietly. The way it woke something in you. She said nothing. He closed his eyes. He'll use that. Use you. He wants the 10th house to rise again, and he wants to sit beside its queen. I'm not anyone's queen, Luna whispered. He looked at her then, really looked at her. and in a voice that broke just a little, said, "No. But you could be." Chapter 12, Bridal Showdown. It was supposed to be a harmless display of glamour. A night of elegance, silk, diamonds, and flashing cameras, held in one of the most exclusive venues in Europe, the Gallery Nocturne, a vampire-owned fashion house that only opened its doors once every 100 years. The theme was the Eternal Bride. Dozens of models, vampires, mortals, and creatures of questionable classification, would strut down the runway in gowns designed to represent the history of immortal unions. It was fashion, diplomacy, and thinly veiled court politics all at once. Darian was the guest of honor. And Luna. She was the finale. A symbol of modern royal bonding. The only human to be accident married into a vampire house and survive it, publicly. Darian had warned her. Repeatedly. If you walk that runway, you will no longer be a mystery. You will become a target. You don't have to prove yourself, Luna. But she did. She had to walk down that runway in front of the Vampire Council, the immortal elite, and the global press because for once, she wanted the world to see her not as the mortal fluke, but as someone meant to be there. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that someone else was planning a walk too. A bloody, unforgettable one. The room was an architectural cathedral of glass and obsidian. Massive stained glass windows rose behind the stage like holy relics, each depicting key vampire unions from myth and history. The crowd buzzed with whispered politics and polished gossip. The stage itself was a strip of floating crystal suspended over a reflecting pool so dark it looked like a night sky. Every major house was present. Every camera was rolling. The show began with ancient elegance, brides in 13th century corsets, bone-threaded veils, and baroque train lengths that required assistance from cloaked attendants. Midway through, the tone shifted. Gothic turned modern. Ripped lace. Blood-inked calligraphy. Sequins that sparkled like shards of silver. And finally, as the orchestra swelled, Luna stepped onto the runway. Her gown shimmered like liquid night, black silk cut in clean, regal lines, with veins of dark red stitched through the hem like rising smoke. Her shoulders were bare, her posture straight. A matching black crown rested on her head, forged in the image of thorns and flame. The crowd stilled. Even the council leaned forward. Darian watched from the side, jaw set in restrained pride. But Luna only had eyes for the runway, and the feeling that, for the first time, she was exactly where she needed to be. Step by step, she walked the path beneath thousands of years of judgmental immortal stares. And then, the lights went out. Hijacked. A single spotlight returned. At the far end of the runway stood Lady Evangeline von Dammerung. She wore a bridal gown that could only be described as deliberately blasphemous, a torn white veil drenched in crimson, a bodice threaded with silver needles, and a skirt stained with what was very obviously blood. Her makeup was smeared like war paint, and in one hand she held a black blade dagger that shimmered with ancient energy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The orchestra fell silent. Evangeline's voice echoed across the chamber. Centuries I stood by his side. Centuries I waited to be crowned beside him. And now this mortal, this accident, this diluted bloodline mistake, where's my crown? I think not. Security began to move. Darian surged forward, but the air shimmered, and a protective barrier of old magic flared up around the stage. He pounded against it, eyes glowing with rage. Evangeline. This is treason. She smiled. This is justice. Then she turned to Luna, who hadn't moved from center stage. The two women faced each other, bride to bride, moonlight catching on one's silk, the other's blade. "I challenge you," Evangeline declared, "to a blood duel. Here. Now. In front of the council. In the name of legacy." A horrified murmur swept the room. Blood duels were sacred. Rare. Final. The council could stop it, but only if Luna refused. Darian yelled, voice ragged. "Don't do it. Step off the stage, Luna." But she didn't. She raised her chin, staring Evangeline down like she had trained her whole life for this moment. Her voice was clear, cold. "I accept." The protective circle flared again, locking them in. Evangeline struck first, blinding speed, unnatural precision. Her blade hissed through the air. But Luna ducked. Reflex. Intuition. Something inside her had woken. They clashed in silence. No music. No commentary. Just the sound of silk tearing and metal singing. Evangeline was stronger. But Luna was smarter. And faster than she had any right to be. She remembered what Darian taught her in the weeks after their bonding, the way to move like shadow, to strike like light. Evangeline cut her once across the arm. Luna kicked her off the stage into the shallow pool. The crowd gasped. The water turned pink. Evangeline rose, furious, soaked, and grinning. "You think you've won?" Luna raised her fists. "No. I'm just getting started." Evangeline leapt, and Luna caught her midair, twisting, flipping her into the marble with a crash that made cameras rattle. One of the ancient mirrors shattered. And the moment it did, Luna's mark ignited. Golden sigils flared across her back and arms. A visible echo of the 10th house burned into existence. The crowd screamed. Evangeline hesitated for the first time. "What are you?" Luna's voice was calm. "Something older than your jealousy. And stronger than your hate." Then she struck. One blow. Clean. Right into Evangeline's shoulder. The dagger clattered away. Evangeline collapsed, breathing hard, blood pooling around her in crimson lace. The barrier dropped. Darian raced to Luna's side, grabbing her before her knees gave out. Her hands trembled in his. "You," he stared at her like she was something divine. "You won." "I know," she whispered. "Can I faint now?" And she did. Straight into his arms. The vampire world would never be the same. The mortal bride had accepted a blood challenge, and won. She wasn't just a human anymore. She was a force. A bloodline reborn. And as she lay unconscious in Darian's arms, her crown still miraculously on her head, the council passed silent judgment. The 10th house had returned. Because every love story deserves a little magic. You've just felt the passion, the heartbreak, and maybe a spark of destiny. Subscribe for more supernatural love, dramatic twists, and heart-fluttering romance. Like if you believe in second chances and fated mates. Comment your favorite romantic moment, we read them all, and we swoon with you. Ring the bell so you never miss the next magical chapter. Share with a fellow hopeless romantic, you know they're secretly obsessed too. Because here at Supernatural Romance Stories, the moon is always watching, and love always finds a way.